Domestic violence can be an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially in the faith-based communities. But domestic abuse affects us all, regardless of the gender, race, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, culture, or religion. Hello, my name is Neisha, and I'm the Domestic Violence Outreach Liaison with the Newport News Police Department.
Domestic violence can happen at any time, even on days of religious observance, like the Sabbath and Sundays. This is why it's so important to talk about it, so that hope, safety, and peace of mind can be given to those who are affected by it. I am Cheryl Chavers, Domestic Violence Specialist with the Newport News Police Department.
Domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. There are many different types of abuse that can be experienced, ranging from emotional, financial, sexual, physical, digital, and even spiritual abuse.
Contrary to popular belief, domestic violence also happens in communities of faith. It is often kept in the dark as there's much shame, guilt, and embarrassment associated with being a victim of domestic violence.
Awareness about domestic violence needs to be brought to our churches, temples, synagogues, mosques, and other congregations of faith so that we can bring hope and help to someone who is hurting.
Hi, my name is Ben Rothwell. I'm the pastor at Crosswalk, Newport News. And I think it's important that we have the conversation about domestic violence inside the walls of our own places of worship. As leaders in the faith-based community, it's important that we recognize our responsibility to be dealers of hope. But it can be difficult to deal hope into situations that we don't always recognize exists right here among us. It's time that we start the conversation about acknowledging brokenness that needs healing and hopelessness that needs hope.
Research tells us that people of faith who are experiencing domestic violence are more likely to go to their faith-based leader, that's their pastor, priest, rabbi, imam, to gain the guidance that they need to help them with what they're going through. This is really good news.
But the bad news is, research also tells us that the faith-based community is not always equipped to deal with handling this sensitive issue. Oftentimes, the abuse is minimized, if not swept under the rug completely, and the abuser is not held accountable.
Hello, my name is Pastor Ginger Simpson, and I'm from Relevant Church in Virginia Beach. I'm here to share with you that once upon a time, I was married to a pastor who abused me physically, emotionally, and spiritually right there in the church. I didn't know better at the time, and when I would go to other people for help on how to get out of an abusive marriage, I was told by other leaders that maybe you just don't have enough faith, or maybe it's your fault. And so by the grace of God and finally just the boldness, I finally learned and got the power to walk away. There's nowhere in the Word of God that says that He wants you to be abused. There's nowhere in the Word of God that says that you should stay in a situation where you're not loved. It is my mission and my journey to help others like me, maybe a pastor's wife, maybe you're sitting in the congregation. You do not have to fight this alone.
We want you to know that there is hope to offer you, and there is help and resources available to you in your places of worship.
The START education and intervention model was developed by researchers to support communities of faith start addressing the issue of domestic abuse.
S, shatter the silence. Domestic abuse often takes place in isolation, and we must break the culture of secrecy that leaves so many to suffer in silence. You can start by being reflective of your own personal views on how you really think and how you really feel about domestic abuse.
T, talk about it. By having regular and transparent conversations with people in your congregation, you can come to understand signs of abuse and red flags so that you can more readily have a conversation about what it looks like to help and prevent domestic violence in your place of worship.
A, alert the public. Let the community know that your congregation will be a safe haven for victims of abuse by providing education and awareness about domestic violence within and beyond the walls of your congregation.
R, refer. Become familiar with domestic abuse resources in your community. Refer victims to organizations that specialize in domestic abuse crisis intervention. They can help victims with stability and safety.
T, train yourself and others. You can never stop learning, so do what you can to learn about the cycle of abuse, the signs, and what you can do to stop it. Then, take what you have learned to train and empower others. That way they too can recognize the signs of abuse within their faith communities' walls and beyond.
The Newport News Police Department Domestic Violence Team stands united with the faith-based community and implores you to take a stand against domestic violence and use your voice to make a difference.
Regardless of your faith or your beliefs, domestic violence is never okay, and it cannot and should not be tolerated.
Thank you for the opportunity to bring awareness to your congregation about domestic abuse. Together, we can end this epidemic and lead a victim of domestic abuse out of darkness and into the light.